criticism that missing black women and girls are ignored by law enforcement and the media, so his plan would ensure that this demographic would receive the same level of resources to help bring them home. The bill states a law enforcement agency may issue an Amber Alert after considering several factors, including those who are between 12 and 25 years old, possible victims of trafficking or abduction, or individuals suffering from a physical or mental disability. For more on these stories and international, national, state, and local news affecting the black community, listen to the Black Information Network on the iHeartRadio app or log on to BINnews.com. I'm Terry McCready along with Kevin Brown on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
This is Scott and Dion for Practical Parenting. These are challenging times. It's difficult to manage emotions and feelings in light of what's happened in Minneapolis, Atlanta, Louisville, and so many other places. But how are your kids handling these things?
Psychologist Dr. Nikisha Hammond has some tips for black parents to manage racism at home. Have continuous conversations with your children about racism, the role of police, and how everything is impacting your family. If you have teenagers, chances are they're exposed to all sorts of traumatic social media images. Let them know your values and emphasize you'll be a source of support for them. Make sure they understand that their voice matters.
It's okay to let them know you don't have the solutions to everything related to racism. Do the best you can to stay educated on how to best help your children. Also, take care of yourself so you can be the most supportive parent possible. Race-related stress will affect you and affect your relationships with your children. This is Scott and Dion on the Black Information Network.
The power of information.
Black news here and now.
The Bay Area's BIN 910.
I'm Natasha Williams on your home for 24/7 News, San Francisco's BIN 910. California's plan to grant reparations to black residents could cost the state $800 billion. Public comments are being taken right now as the task force meets to discuss the cost. The callers are mostly anonymous unless they introduce themselves. This caller with the 1619 Reparations Project says opponents who say they don't want to throw money at a problem without a plan are partly right.
Write your plan, even the church pastor, all of you reverends out there. You should be writing the plan for the black community you serve. So when it comes time for reparations, you say, yeah, here's our plan for black Americans.
The task force is looking at July 1st as a deadline to determine a dollar amount and how much California should give its black residents. Public comments included this woman who no longer lives in California but says she was subjected to racism as a child and a teenager in Berkeley.
I'm here to represent the voice of Californians who have strong ties to the state, but were pushed out, driven out, or priced out.
A former San Jose city worker is accused of sexual assault against victims as young as 6 years old. Sergeant George Garibay of San Jose's police department tells NBC Bay Area the first report was made last week.
Regarding being sexually assaulted by the suspect for several years. During a thorough investigation, we identified several other juvenile victims ranging in ages of 6 to 13.
Police announced Gilberto Nevarez was arrested last week for sexually assaulting 3 girls he knew at a home. He worked with the homeless as a community activity employee. The longtime executive director of the San Jose Police Association has been federally charged for allegedly attempting to sell illegal drugs. Retired independent police auditor African-American LaDoris Cordell tells NBC Bay Area what that charge means.
Collateral damage, embarrassment, but there's a little more. I think SJPOA needs to respond to the community and answer some questions, and I hope that they are transparent when they do so.
Federal prosecutors say Joanne Segovia of the San Jose Police Officers Association is accused of ordering and distributing thousands of opioids and other pills. Oakland police are hoping they've solved a case of 18 armed robberies. Officers arrested 4 suspects saying they terrorized innocent people by pistol whipping them and stealing personal items. All of the crimes happened on the east side over the last 3 months, usually at night while the victims were out for a walk. Most were men between the ages of 18 and 65. Police say they did recover some of the property. And a critical water shortage is unfolding in the Bay Area. Everyone in Benicia is being told to conserve after a hilltop collapse near Interstate 680 damaging a water line. An alert posted recently says all homes, businesses, schools, and hotels must cut water use by 40%. The The city will assess the water from Lake Herman while repairs are underway. And that's a look at what's happening around the Bay Area. On social media, follow the BIN on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Black Information Network and on Twitter at BlackInfoNet. I'm Natasha Williams on your home for 24/7 News, San Francisco's BIN 910.
Looking for ways to get involved? The National Urban League works to provide economic empowerment, educational opportunities, and the guarantee of civil rights for the underserved. Learn more at nul.org.
The power of information.
Black news here and now.
Bay Area's BIN 910.
This hour of news is brought to you by CVS Health, proud founding partner of the Black Information Network.
You work hard and do a great job for your employer, so it's entirely acceptable to ask for a raise if it's been more than a year since your last increase. To increase your chances of getting the dollars you deserve, try these few things to place the odds in your favor. The best way to ask for a raise is to do your research and know your worth. Then approach your boss in a professional manner. Be prepared to articulate reasons why you deserve a raise. Your rent going up will not motivate your boss as much as pointing out all that you've accomplished. Do your math and figure out how much you should ask for. The average pay raise is 3%. A good pay raise ranges from 4.5% to 6%. Be confident when you meet with your supervisor, and don't forget to put your request in writing. Using these tips may help you bring home the bag. I'm Terrence Bibb on the Black Information Network. Elevating voices. We're here to watch our DA's back.
And the stories that matter to our community. Rolling Fork, Mississippi is devastated. A tornado took it all.
If it's important to us.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres marking International Day to remember the victims and the transatlantic slave trade. You'll hear about it
On the Black Information Network.
the Bay Area's BIN 910 and on the iHeartRadio app. A special thank you to Geico.
A proud founding partner who shares and supports the mission of the Black Information Network.
I'm Bill Black with another Bet You Didn't Know music fact. Some R&B tracks are so good that the instrumental was used to make other hits throughout the year. Take the Barge's 1983 hit Stay With Me. Speed up the track just a little bit, and you get the Notorious B.I.G.'s One More Chance. Fast forward again, slow it down just a little bit, and you get Ashanti's Foolish. Then slow it down a little bit more, and we bring it up to date with Moneybag Yo's Waukesha.
I'm sitting here knowing I don't need you. Put my O's in the lead, sipping, chasing with my reed. Can't get my mind on Waukesha. Watch me put my heart in this cup.
From the 80s to the 90s, the 2000s, and now, one song, a lot of hits. I'm Bill Black, and that's another Bet You Didn't Know music fact on the Black Information Network.
The opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed in this commentary are those of the author and do not necessarily represent those of BIN and its founding partners and employees. Now it's time to bring the funk with Roland S. Martin.
Vice President Kamala Harris is in Ghana as we speak on a one-week tour of African nations. Her visit is important because what it does is it underscores the importance of Africa to the world moving forward. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. It has 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies. And what is required is for the United States to stop looking at Africa, the continent, and its 54 countries as somehow being solely in need of aid when what is required is investment. Ghana is important because it was the first African nation to achieve independence from colonial rule. When you think about these countries, folks don't understand. Many of them are so young when it comes to being free of colonialism. And I speak of being free of colonialism ruling, but they still are in many ways being held back by the after effects of colonialism. And so The need for investment, for building infrastructure is critically important. For building education, critically important. And so we must redefine how we look at Africa. So many of us think about those commercials where you can feed a kid on $1 a day. And flies all around their faces. That's how some people think. They still think they live in shanties and huts. Folks, Africa is a powerful place, and the U.S. should do more to help the motherland. I'm Roland Martin, the Black Information Network.
I'm Julius White. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The indictment of former President Trump marks the first criminal case against a former U.S. president. Trump has already weighed in, calling it political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. Meanwhile, there are more investigations of Trump currently underway. Meantime, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is slamming a New York grand jury's vote to indict Trump. In a tweet Thursday, DeSantis said the weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. The Florida governor is expected to be an opponent of Trump's for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. And the Virginia NAACP is concerned a new curfew bill will negatively impact black and brown communities. The law gives police chiefs the authority to set a curfew when there is an imminent threat of any civil commotion or disturbance in the nature of a riot. I'm Julius White. I'm your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
News impacting your town,
Your world, your voice.
the Bay Area's BIN 910.
Sports on the Black Information Network. Two out left of the ninth bases loaded. Here's Sanchez.
Well, look, going to 2 and 2 doesn't equal 4 in schools anymore. So this would be part of that. I'm going to continue with you if you have a few moments.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Michael Duran, a senior fellow at the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East at the Hudson Institute. The world is unraveling because of America's left. We continue.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
It's around tax season, and those famous words from a real American president come to mind. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Government isn't helping you. Their spending addiction is driving up inflation.
The effect on the game is going to be enormous and enormously positive.
And the value of Major League Baseball franchises is going up. Trey Thomas has the details on this story. According to Forbes, average MLB team value increased 12% over the past year to $2.32 billion, with revenue increasing nearly 8% to $10.3 billion. The New York Yankees topped the list of teams published by Forbes as the most valuable franchise in the league at more than $7 billion, following the Bronx Bombers or the Dodgers at $4.8 billion. I'm Trey Thomas. Get your sports at 14 and 44 past each and every hour. I'm Ray Harris on the Black Information Network.
A special thank you to McDonald's,
A proud founding partner who shares and supports the mission of the Black Information Network. In December of 2020, Danita Johnson was announced as the new president of DC United, making her the first African-American woman or man to hold that role for a Major League Soccer club. A native of Fayetteville and graduate of Western Carolina University in 2005, she's also a member of the historically black sorority Delta Sigma Theta. One of her early career highlights was playing a role in launching the Bakersfield Jam of the NBA G League. And just before joining DC United, she was president and COO of the Los Angeles Sparks. As if running one of the most storied clubs in MLS history isn't enough, Johnson also finds time to give back as a board member of the Share Winter Foundation, which aims to build youth participation in winter sports. She's also involved in the Boys and Girls Club of America, a member of the Rotary International, and a mentor with the Wise Within program. Johnson stands as an inspiration for black leadership in the realm of sports and beyond, making Danita Johnson another name you should know. I'm Wesson Tishon, Black Information Network.
Network.
Lauryn Hill and Megan Thee Stallion are set to headline the 2023 Essence Festival of Culture in New Orleans. Hill will celebrate the 25th anniversary of her debut solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Other performers include Wizkid, Coco Jones, Monica, and more. Dougie Fresh and Jermaine Dupri will also celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip-hop in a performance. Essence Fest kicks off on June 29th and runs until July 3rd. Tickets are available on the festival's official website. The announcement comes as the Houston Chronicle reports Megan Thee Stallion threw the first pitch at the Houston Astros opening day game at Minute Maid Park. Meanwhile, rapper Tory Lanez is filing an appeal after being convicted in the Megan Thee Stallion shooting. TMZ reports Tory's lawyer, Jose Baez, claims prosecutors used evidence that was irrelevant to the trial. During the trial, prosecutors used a picture of Tory Lanez with a gun on his chest for identification purposes. But his lawyers believe prosecutors were trying to persuade the jury that he had a passion for guns. Baez also noted that a lot of the 80-minute interview with Megan's former best friend, Kelsey Harris, was recanted. Megan also told police Tory told her not to say anything because he was on probation. Lanez is being charged with 3 felony violations and is facing up to 22 years in prison. He is scheduled to be sentenced next month. With the latest in entertainment, I'm Morgan Wood on the Black Information Network.
I'm Gerald Denard on the Black Information Network. Toward the end of the Civil War in 1865, Union leaders gathered a group of black ministers in Savannah, Georgia. The goal was to help thousands of newly freed slaves. From that meeting came General William T. Sherman's Special Field Order 15, which set aside 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land for freed slaves. Sherman appointed Brigadier General Rufus Saxon to divide up the land, giving each family up to 40 acres. And it wasn't in the order, Elmore says, but some also received leftover Army mules. After Lincoln was assassinated, President Andrew Johnson reversed the order, giving the land back to former Confederate landowners. And that's a fact. For these stories and more, go to BINnews.com.
Keeping you up to date on the Black Information Network, the Bay Area, BIN 910.
I'm John Marshall.
And I'm Bree Wood on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In Rolling Fork, Mississippi, an African-American lifelong resident, Larry Jeffries, has grown accustomed to the tornado sirens that sit just behind his backyard. Last week, however, a powerful tornado hit Rolling Fork, but Jeffries and his neighbors said they did not hear a single sound from the siren.
Growing up, every time there was a tornado on the ground nearby, there's a siren that goes off. I've heard it all of my life. I didn't hear it that night.
The Sharkey County Sheriff's Office operates 2 tornado alarms, and the dispatch supervisor told the Washington Post that the individual who sounds those sirens had trouble getting them working. Residents are saying they need more sirens and resources to help get the word out about potentially fatal weather.
An unnamed black and Japanese 18-year-old asked his New York-based black father how he should style his hair for his graduation from high school in Japan. His suggestion was cornrows. The teen ended up getting reprimanded for the hairstyle, which was deemed prohibited, and asked to go to the second floor where there were no other students as the ceremony was about to begin. The student decided to go home in the middle of the ceremony before his name was called. Democratic politicians in Japan are now calling for the country to improve on how it views diversity.
Last year, Raheem Carter, a 25-year-old black man, went missing in Mississippi after visiting Taylorsville Police Department twice, reporting he was being hunted by white men in trucks. A month after he went missing, his skeletal remains were found dismembered and scattered in the woods just a few miles from the police department. Attorney Benjamin Crump, who is representing Raheem's family, details the gruesome alleged murder.
His head was severed from his body. His spinal cord was in another spot they discovered away from his severed head.
Crump is now calling for the U.S. Justice Department to take over the investigation of Carter's death.
And Jason Scott, a black North Carolina Army vet, purchased a $68,000 Maserati SUV from Carvana last year for his wife. During a routine servicing at the dealership, the car was declared stolen, but a technician stated that the year of the vehicle's VIN was not the same as its